Today's sermon is called Mom Notes. I sat across the lunch table in second grade from this kid, Ian, and as we would open our lunch boxes on the count of three, everybody say your lunch box when you were a kid. 1, 2, 3, Boston Bruins. I had a Boston Bruins lunch box. It was awesome. I wanted Scooby-Doo, but that was too scary, so I settled for Boston Bruins. But anyway, Ian would open up his lunch box, and on the top of his lunch every day, without fail, was a note from his mom. I love you, Ian. I hope that guy, if she's still around, and he's still around, I hope he's having a good day thanking his mom, because that's pretty awesome. Anybody gotten some great mom notes over the years? Hopefully you gave your mom a card or some note of something today, a text at least. But mom notes in my life from my mom have been pivotal messages, pivotal inspirations from God. I was a senior in high school. I was living in northern Maine. My parents had moved to Illinois. I was kind of by myself. And as a 17-year-old who's living outside of his parents' home for the first time, I got into some stuff. And kind of lived pretty recklessly that year, not proud of it, but it's what happened. My mom would write me letters. This is back in the days when you had to actually sit down with a pen and use a piece of paper and put a stamp on it, and it would take 5 days to get there. Who remembers? Anybody remember? Some of us do. She would write these letters, and they were always encouraging, but this one particular one came on Saturday morning. I had been out all Friday night. I was hungover as I opened my mother's letter, and she wrote in that letter what she had been sensing from God as she prayed for me. She's a faithful believer and had loved me and pointed me in Christ's direction, even though I wasn't following him at the time. And she said to me these things: I think you're going to go to Bible school, Mark, and become a pastor at a church. I think God has these great things in store for you. And I was like, Mom, if you could have seen me last night, you would not have been writing these things. But how you doing? Here I am. What's up? And by God's grace, God uses our moms to point us in his direction. Mom still writes me today. I'm going to walk off the stage, I'm sure, if she's watching this service. Hi, Mom. She watches almost every week from Cleveland, where she lives with my sister. And she's going to text me her encouragements. They're always warm. Many of them are funny. This one was a warm one. She wrote me a couple weeks ago after our service that the tears were flowing. What an amazing service, Mark. That message was anointed from God. God breathed. So good. And that last song, way to go, Darnisha and the team. Poof, and the floodgates opened. My heart is so full of love for you, my son. Sometimes she goes Yoda on me. This is what she wrote. So blessed am I by you. Anyway, that was just a couple weeks ago. Love mom notes. Today, as we kind of, have another Mother's Day together, I figured out this past week that I've never preached a mother-specific or a woman-specific message on Mother's Day. We're fixing that. But I also recognize my limitations. Not a woman, never been a mother, right? So where can we go to Scripture for things that could, speak to this? Well, I found a note from a mom in our Bibles to her son. It's in Proverbs 31. If you want to go there, it starts like this. In Proverbs 31, verse 41, here in this last chapter of this amazing book of wisdom, it says, the words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. These are mom's words given to this king. We don't know for sure who King Lemuel is. His name in Hebrew means belonging to God. That makes some people think that maybe it's like a pet name that was given to the actual author of most of the Proverbs, a guy named Solomon in our Bibles. And so that would make this mother, Bathsheba, but we can't verify that. And it doesn't really matter. What we have here is what God has included in our scriptures from a mom to her son about life and how it should be lived. She writes wisdom to her son about how he personally lived. And so these are what we're going to call mom notes for men. And then she writes to her son some wisdom about what he should be looking for in a woman, in a life partner, in a wife. And so that description is what I call mom notes for women. We're going to be going through this mom note for us all, men and women. And let's start with the men. This is how she starts this oracle that she's given to her son Lemuel. She says, "What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows?" 3 times she asked the question most often asked by mothers as they raise their children. What are you doing? Everybody think back to the time when you were asked that by your parent or your mom. Can everybody remember one of those moments? There were many in my life, but let's not go there. Let's go to my sister. My sister Erin was 4, and she had watched my dad shave his face every morning in the bathroom where he kept his razor. She crawled up on the sink, opened the medicine cabinet, grabbed that straight edge razor, and just started shaving her face one morning so that she could be like Dad. Yes, you are rightly gasping. It was a kind of a gnarly mess. Not terrible. She's a beautiful woman, and her modeling career is still in line if it ever starts. But Mom came into that. Hey, Mark. Hey, my sister Kirsten. Hey, where's Aaron? Well, I don't know. And she went running down the hall. We're just looking for her, and found her in the bathroom. And what did she say? What are you doing? With that kind of inflection. There's a kind of a cousin statement, a past tense version of this. It's what were you thinking? Anybody been visited by your parent, your mom or dad, after you've done something really stupid and they're just kind of looking at you being like, really? What were you thinking? Real quick one on me. My mom turned the corner of our house in Quincy, Massachusetts, just in time to see me finish my fall from the roof onto the ground and to roll out in my yard. And just a little background, I had a G.I. Joe with a parachute, right? And I saw how often and how fun it seemed for my doll, which is what it was. It was an action figure. Anyway, as I threw it in the air to just kind of float softly to earth, and I was like, what's good for Joe is good for bro. And so I got up on the roof of my house with a garbage bag. Hadn't been to science yet, and didn't understand that this was not going to do, and so leaped off of a 10-foot roof onto the front yard of my house, and bag did not inflate, and so full brunt. And kids are made of rubber. I was like 9, 10 years old at the time, and I just kind of bounced and rolled, but it hurt. And my mom saw, and she asked. Well, first question was, what's the first question, moms? Are you okay? Absolutely, right? She's not a monster, but. She asked me if I was okay, and then as soon as she found out I was, what were you thinking? Get inside, the whole thing. We had to talk. Anyway, this mom asks her son Lemuel, what are you doing? What are you doing specifically with your life? We can't overread things into the text, but apparently Lemuel's been making some choices, kind of like I had as a senior in high school. And so mom's going to correct him. She's going to correct him, and then she's going to encourage him and point him in a different direction. So 2 things, fellas, and this, it's strange on a Mother's Day that we would talk to the dudes, but this is a mom's note, a mom's wisdom to us fellas. Pay attention. The first thing she says to her son is steer your life in right directions, which everybody says, duh, we're in church, you're supposed to say that, Mark. But it's alarming at how seldom we as men choose the wise path. And so she has to tell her son, this prince, I'm guessing at the time, to steer away from the things that would ruin his life. Look what it says in verse 3. Don't give your strength, here we go, to women. Your ways to those who destroy kings. A man of power who has access to whatever he would desire would be prone, I'm guessing, not just men in power, all men, to giving into their appetites, the hedonism that is kind of packaged with our sin nature, and he would just seek to fulfill himself in whatever ways he could. With women, in the lifestyle that it would bring. Look at what it says next. She says, don't give your strength to women into the ways that would destroy kings. It's not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. So in a nutshell, hey, bozo, quit serving yourself in all of these ways that satisfy your lusts and your appetites, and slow down long enough to consider what that's going to do to the people around you. If you're this lout of a king, of course it's going to affect your kingdom. If you're this dog as a husband, of course it's going to affect your marriage. If you're this ogre as a father, of course it's going to affect your children. Slow down. steer in different directions. I've seen too many families torn apart by the bonehead poor choices of selfish men. And I pray on the regular that you, fellas, and I would be men who would glorify God and honor him as we serve our wives and our families, as we go to our jobs and we seek to, bring him and his character into what we do. It's crucial, men, that we keep a clear head. Our flourishing in life depends on it. Paul wrote it this way as he wrote to the church in Ephesus. He said this in verse 15 of chapter 5. He says, look carefully then how you walk. Watch where you're going. Don't be unwise, but be wise. And make the best use of all of your time. Don't take breaks from the good. Make the best use of all of your time. Why? Because evil lurks. Like, you read the Proverbs. That's all it talks about, is that evil is crying out from the streets and whispering to you like a harlot. And it's just trying to draw you off of the path that God would have you walk on and into the world where you would defy him. He says, don't be foolish, verse 17, but understand what the will of the Lord is and choose it. Here's the problem, fellas. A lot of us understand the will of the Lord. We're just like, no thanks. Can't be bothered. I like this better. Just so we can kind of tie in the two passages. He talks about drinking. Here we go. Don't get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with spirit. Some of you are like, I drink beer. All right. That's not what he means. And listen, I don't know what your church background is. I grew up in a very legalistic environment, and we had to stand up in the church covenant vow not to drink alcohol or sell it. We just had all these rules. People ask me how I feel about the consumption of alcohol. Mark, should we drink good beer? And I'm like, yeah. I already messed up my joke. Should we drink beer? And I'm like, yes, good beer, like the good ones. But don't miss this, please. This is so important. I'm all about the freedoms that we've been given in Christ. But the lines remain, fellas. And just because we live in a world that is wonderfully blessed by God's grace, it does not mean that he's not serious about the lines that he's drawn and the ramifications that will come if you cross them. So don't get sloppy with your life. Know when enough is enough. Know what matters most and choose it for your sake and for the sake of those that God has entrusted to you in life. What are you steering towards in life, fellas? What course corrections need to be made? What do you need to start saying no to in life so you can say yes to God and who he gives you? That's the mom's warning. Moms are wont to do that, and thankfully they do. But she also speaks to her son and gives an encouragement. She tells him to give his life to the service of others. Look at what it says in verse 8. Mom said this to her son Lemuel, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth and judge righteously and defend the rights of the poor and the needy. The reason that we say no to ourselves is so that we can say yes to God and those that he gives us. The reason that we don't obsess over our own appetites is so that we can have an appetite for good and blessing those around us. This quote has been attributed to some person from antiquity. Every website I read said that's not really him. I don't care. It's a good quote. It's this one. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do what? Nothing. And so we need to be focused enough and without distraction enough that we can sense when God is leading us into these opportunities where we could serve him and those that he loves. I'm walking back from a run. I took a run yesterday, and I ran a distance and then, kind of cooled off with a longer walk. But I was at the end of that walk. I had my AirPods in. I was listening to my book, and I was startled by one of my neighbors who had apparently been trying to get my attention on behalf of all men who wear earbuds or headphones of any kinds. Ladies, my apologies. We're not always able to hear you. But this woman, waving her arms, comes up to me saying my name. I don't know her, okay? Mark! And I'm like, oh. and took my AirPods out, and she said, hey, I know you don't know me, I know your wife. I've just locked myself out of my house. My phone's in there, and I need to call a locksmith. Is your phone on you? And I was like, yeah. And would you mind if I used it? And I said, how dare you? Do you not see that I am on a walk? You're interrupting my book, ma'am. Now, some of you are new, and you may be like, yeah, it seems like that might be something he said. That's not what I said. Of course I said, absolutely. Are you okay? She's like, yeah, I just locked my, she's an older lady, just locked my stuff. And I was like, oh, is there anything else I can do for you? No. So we called a locksmith, and I had to stick around because they don't come unless you verify and all these, and whatever. And was it any skin off your pastor's nose to do that? No. And am I grateful because I was preaching this today that happened? Yeah. But is that the default setting in your pastor's life? No, just like it's not in yours. Because a lot of times you're not available. Why? Because you're consumed with you, just like I'm consumed with me. So this mom says to her son, hey, bud, like my mom used to say to me, you're not the only person in the world. Some great wisdom there from a mom to a man. Steer away from what will destroy you. Steer towards the one who needs your help. Now let me talk to the ladies with the rest of our time. Everybody pray. Here we go. I'm acutely aware of my limitations. I think I mentioned that before. Never been a mom, never been a woman. I am married to one. She's awesome. I've been raised by one, equally awesome. So I can kind of talk from that side of the equation. But I do have this mom's note and her description for her son of the woman that he should desire in life. I talked to Eleanor before I said last night that my wife left me. Everybody in church last night was like, oh. Eleanor went away from the weekend, and she's with my daughter in New York so that they can share Mother's Day together. She didn't leave me. She just left me. Are you with me? All right. But I knew she was going, and so we had this conversation about what I was going to preach this weekend. She's like, I'm like, hey, you're a woman. What would you say if you were up here? And she said, well, here's one thing I'd make sure that all the ladies know. A lot of times when you read like these lists of what is ultimate for the female gender, you can come to those lists and feel wanting, and almost read the Bible and get discouraged or depressed. And she said, would you tell my sisters that that's not what this is for? So I'm telling you, sisters, that's not what this is for. It's to encourage you in the things that God has blessed you to be able to do and become, and to inspire you to go further in those things. So, with that in mind, let's talk about this mom's notes for women. Look at verse 10. An excellent wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. Other English translations translate this a little bit of Hebrew this way. A virtuous woman who can find. That word wife there in our translation is the Hebrew word isha. Everybody say isha. Yeah, it means wife, but it's also the word for woman. And so I'm expanding it to not just the wives in here and not just the moms in here, but all of you who are women. An excellent woman who can find. She's valuable, far more precious than jewels. And what follows is a list of the characteristics, the qualities that makes this woman so estimable, so honorable, so desirable in life, if you're a guy looking for a partner to walk in it with. This might be, these next things might be an answer to the question, what must a woman do in God's eyes to be excellent in life? And there's 4 things. Certainly not an exhaustive list, ladies, but time allowing, these are the things we're going to get to from what we read here in Proverbs 31. 4 principles. First one's this. Where it applies, it doesn't always, but where it applies, a woman does right by the man that's in her life, the man that's her husband, the man that she's dating, whatever, but certainly husbands are noted here. This is what it says in Proverbs 31:11. The heart of her husband, this woman's husband, trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. A couple things from these 2 verses. In verse 11, we basically get this idea that the woman is competent. Not just competent, but like confident and willing to give her ideas so that the direction of the household, the relationship can go towards the good and lack no gain. I can't tell you how many times God has used my wife to be like, hey bro, slow down and listen and go in the direction that she says. I live in this house that we're just so happy with. It's not the biggest house, the nicest house, the newest house, but it's the house that we love. And I would never be in this house except that my wife, A, found it, and B, convinced me that we needed to go live in it. Because when we found it, it had been left basically empty for 10 years. It had been inhabited by another family. It was rough. And I am not handy, right? And so if this was a math equation, it just wasn't adding up. But she was, as we prayed and we sought God, and she got more excited about the potentials because she can see things I can't, she just won me over. And I'm so, guys, fellas, anybody married to someone who won you over in some situation? You're like, I'm so glad I listened to you. Why didn't I just, do that more? That's just the nature of the wife that I have. She instills confidence in her husband. I trust her. The longer I live with her, the more I trust her. The second verse talks about her doing good and not harm all the days of his life. And when I put that in my own terms, it's like, this woman's a good hang. Like this guy looks forward to coming home. Enjoys her company. Eleanor's in New York City. You know how she got there? She took a train from Orlando to New York City. You want to guess how long that takes? For this guy, too long. That's too long. It's about a day and 5-6 hours. It's a long haul, okay? But she wanted to do it because she's a nut and enjoyed every second of it. Texted me, can't believe this is so fun. I'm like, have fun. Anyway, but she's up there with our daughter. Maybe she's watching right now. Hi. But she took that train, and so Thursday I had to drop her off so she could take the day and a half that she needed to get there for the weekend. And so I drove through Tampa to Orlando traffic early Thursday morning. Yeah, come on. I deserve more than that. Thank you. Okay. It was horrible. I love the people of Orlando. I never want to have to go there again. It's terrible. It took way too long. But by God's grace, we got there in what we thought was plenty of time for her to get on her train. But she went to the ticket desk, and she came back with one of those kind of, I said we thought we needed to be here by 10 so I could get on the train at 11. Yeah. Well, that was for the train that was leaving Tampa at 11 if I had started my journey there. My train doesn't leave for another 3.5 hours. Okay, so already disappointed, right? All right. Had to sit through all that traffic. But here's the deal. In some relationships, well, that would have been like this big, rift between the husband and the wife, and the guy would get back in his truck and be like, well, it stinks to be you. Have a good, whatever. And just, but here's where we've gotten to in our relationship. It's because of the quality of my wife. She's a good hang. I was like, really? We got another 3 hours? I wonder if there's like a greasy spoon where we could go have breakfast. There was. And I wonder if we could just kind of have coffee and sit there and drink and talk about everything you're hoping to do for the weekend. We did. Hey, and I wonder if we have enough time to go take a walk around this neighborhood in Old Orlando and just see all the houses, which she loves to do. And we did. And we got back to the train stop, and there was still plenty of time for her to get on her train, and I gave her a kiss and a hug, and I was like, bonus time with Eleanor. How great was that? Listen, we're not perfect. We get on each other's nerves a lot. But she's still my favorite. And there's nothing wrong, ladies, with wanting to be your husband's or your kids' or your boss's favorites. It's a good thing. Now, I got to say this before I get too far. Just want to clarify priorities. Ladies, your first priority in life should always be your God. Honor him above all else, all right? Probably expect me to say that, but it's true. Your second priority, just so that we, on this Mother's Day, if we're married, we can make sure we got this in balance. Your second priority is your man. Fellas, just like your second priority to God is your woman, okay? You take care of that relationship, and then you go to the other things in your life, like your kids. And one of the things that we have to, help families with around here sometimes is making sure those priorities are in place, because sometimes it's kids, God, man, some way down there, right? Or some mix of the three. God first, marriage second, kids after that. Do great in all of them, but make sure we got that as a list of priorities. So she says, hey, If you're looking for a wife, find one who will do right by you, Lemuel. And then find one who works hard. Ladies, bring your best to your work, wherever it is, at home, at the job, and serving others. Bring your A game. And he spends a lot of time on this one, or she spends, a lot of time on this one. She says, first of all, in verse 13, find a woman that's going to work willingly. Find someone who seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. Wool and flax, wool would be this, this textile that they would, basically turn into wool cloth that would be like your outer coat. Flax was this textile they'd turn into linen. It'd be like your undershirt, right? And so back in those days, the woman of the household typically was in charge of the clothing department of her home. She would make everybody's clothes. Everybody raise your hand if you're wearing something that you made today, right? I'm dressed today in Sam's Club, but most of us buy our own clothes, and it's so hard sometimes when we're reading our Old Testaments to just be like checked out because I don't understand, I don't have anything. No, just read the principles that bubble up as you're reading this stuff. This woman, in what she was doing, worked how? Willingly. Smile on her face. Happy to be of service. It's a get to, not a got to. She could work at Chick-fil-A. My pleasure, right? An excellent woman is happy to help. Not perfectly and always, we all have days. But her general demeanor is like, hey, child of mine, a husband of mine, co-worker of mine, follower of Jesus of mine. Let me serve you, and let me do it with a smile on my face. Ladies, you got this in your bag if you haven't opened it yet. I'm sorry, I'm ruining the surprise. But it's this great little, drinking cup with some stuff in it. And there's a sticker on it that someone in our team designed and was produced in our church that we had to stick on all of these glasses. And I say we because I helped. I did this one. And after doing this one, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore because I don't have the fine motor skills necessary to enjoy the process. But I don't know how many we did of these, hundreds. And there was a group of ladies who here at our church just hung out all week and did that. And I would go in and I'd be like, are you guys done yet? And they'd be like, no, we're not even close. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know why you're doing this. This is so crazy. I mean, moms are great, but seriously, what are we doing, right? And, but does anybody know this woman? She's like, this is the best. They're having so much fun doing it together. It's like, the laughter in the room next to my office is just constant, and they just, they're just having a great time. I love that about people in general, but especially you ladies who just have this God-given ability to just care more and be willing to suffer more for the sake of those around you. I esteem that in you. Way to go. Eleanor got a phone call a couple weeks ago that her father, Byron, had fallen. He's almost 92 years old, took a tumble getting out of a car, 5 ribs broken, shoulder broken, chipped his bone in his neck. He is a tough guy. He is, going to walk through this and live to be 100, he says, or die trying. Anyway, but you hear about your father, having that kind of experience. And as we're talking about it, I just know in my head I'm going to be on a travel site tonight because my wife's going to go see her father. Like, she's going to pray about it, think about it, talk about it, figure out her life and all that stuff. But it's an inevitability that if someone in our family needs care, Eleanor's going to absolutely want to go, and if it's possible, she's going to go. And so last weekend, my wife spent her time sleeping on the floor of her father's room so that she could keep him from doing all the things that the doctors told him not to. Right? Because he's kind of a hard head like that. And but just caring for him in all the ways that you can possibly think that a 92-year-old would need care. She and her brother cared for their dad. And I so esteem that in my bride. Because she does it with a smile on her face. Is it hard? Yeah. But these are the things, ladies, that you should aspire to work willingly, to work creatively. It says in verse 16 that she considers a field and buys it, and with the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. Eleanor loves this one. It means that she's basically looking for ways to increase what the household has. She's a businesswoman, even back thousands of years ago. She's looking for ways to bring what she can into the fold. When we were first having babies, we had 3 kids in 36 months. We figured out what was causing it, and we stopped it. But 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 we just had kids rapid fire, right? And in our house, it was our decision that Eleanor was going to stay home and be with our kids, and it's fine if you aren't or didn't or what, doesn't matter. But that's what we chose in our house, and so that immediately put, a limitation on what we could afford in life, and so we had to, really work hard to stay out of debt and to live within our means. And so Eleanor just took it upon herself as she's, home with 3 babies, like, 3 kids under 3, if you're not doing the math there, right? And she's trying to figure out ways that she can make a contribution. She came up with a 3C plan. The 3C plan includes coupons. You'd probably guess that one, right? So we just couponed everything. I couldn't go to the grocery store without a coupon. It was a total pain. But that did save us some money. Coins, she and my kids, basically, if they saw a penny, they picked it up, right? And they just had this jar, and they would keep throwing things in. And then the last thing was my favorite, caps, hubcaps. My wife would drive around the Dallas Metroplex looking for your hubcap if it fell off your car, because she could turn it into the junkyard and get some money for it, right? Coins, coupons, and caps. At the end of the year, we kind of did a tally, and we found out we couldn't retire. That was a little disappointing. No. Did it amount to much? No. But here's what I took away from that. And early on in our marriage, this was so crucial that I knew I was married to someone who was going to try, who was going to think outside the box, and at least see if there was something that could be done that she'd be doing it. And that spirit has kind of, been fed to our kids, and they're not afraid of work or immune to ideas. It's worked on me. I live in a house that I live in because my wife's the creative that she is. Third thing, not just work willingly and work creatively, but work so you can give. Look what it says in verse 19. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the knees. Did you see the parallel there? There's 4 mentions of hands. And in the first verse, 19, it talks about how she holds the distaff. Everybody knows what a distaff is? No, I didn't either. You're fine. The distaff is basically the raw materials that would be turned into thread. So like a cotton ball or a wool ball or something like that. However it works, I'm not. They would actually, you can look at pictures of this online. They would hold that textile in their hands, and then there would be a process, a weight at the end down here. I can't even explain it. But they'd basically, wind that raw material into thread, and then turn that thread into cloth, and turn that cloth into your clothes. Okay. So it talks about this tedious, long, painstaking process of creating fabric. She does that with her hands. But she does, look at what it says in the second verse. It says she does that with her hands so that her hands can be opened to those who are in need. And this is that picture, again, of what, Lemuel's mom was talking to him about. Hey, don't live just for you. Live with an eye outside to the world around you, to those who might have need that you could provide. When my kids were in elementary school, school would let out, and our house became the Kool-Aid house. Did anybody have a Kool-Aid house in your neighborhood? All the kids would end up at our house and drink our Kool-Aid is what I'm talking about. They'd play, and many of them, kind of became part of our family. And many of them were happy to do so because their families weren't so great. Like this one kid, Deuce. Deuce lived down the street from us, and he was from an original relationship, the first relationship that his mom had, but that guy had left, and he wasn't a part of Deuce's life anymore, and so mom had found another guy, and they had had some kids, and they were way more into those kids than they were into Deuce, and Deuce was kind of like, the displaced person. And so Deuce found a chair at our table, and we fed Deuce and hung out with Deuce. We have even talked about, I wonder if there's a way if we could adopt Deuce. This was all at my wife's behest. Why? Because she understands that her life isn't about her. She's here to glorify God and to be available however she can in the ways that she can serve those around her. It's a great thing to aspire to as you work, ladies. So work willingly, work creatively, work so you can give. How about this one? Be prepared for anything. Don't you love how moms are prepared for anything? Some of you might be wondering as I walked up here, oh, Mark has a nice purse. Not mine. This is one of Eleanor's many purses. Ladies, how many purses you got? There's a bunch at my house. This is one of them. This is her go-to, usually during the week. Just want to do a quick comparison. Woman's purse, man's wallet. Here we go. Do we see a difference in this? You know, most guys aren't carrying the man bag, and if you are, no shame, right? But most of us are carrying the very least that we have to, right? And mine is contained, I got $20, nice. Mine's contained here in this wallet. When I, especially growing up with my mom had purses like this, and I used to challenge her just to see if she had the stuff I would ask for. Hey, do you have vitamin B in there? And she'd pull out all the vitamins. What'd you want? B? Hang on, here you go. And I've always marveled at a woman's, need for a bag, and it's mostly because they just don't want to need it and not have it, right? Because you never know. They're prepared for anything, and it's why they carry this stuff. God esteems that, ladies. God esteems your readiness in life, and fellas too. But I love how that verse ends. Did everybody see that? Strength and dignity are clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She's so prepared. She's like, bring it, whatever you got. Ha 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 ha. My mom on Tuesday had her port put in. She's found out that she has grade 3 cancer in her breast tissue, so it's going to require, at the age of almost 80, the surgeries that go with that. And so here we go again in my family. My sister's dealing with cancer right now too, and so mom and her get to share cancer stories. But you love your parents, you love your mom, and you don't want her to go through pain. So we're texting back and forth about her procedure just to get this port put in so she can have poison, put in her body. And I'm like, hey, Mom, how'd it go? And she's like, well, we haven't gotten back yet, but they tell me the drugs are the best. And I'm like, Mom, are you a crack addict? What's happening right now? No, she's looking forward to the high. And I asked her when she got out, I was like, well, how'd it go? And she's like, the drugs were not what they talked about. It was really disappointing. And but she does that to be funny. She's not really a high seeker. She's just trying to laugh at what's coming up in her life. She's a tough lady. And she knows with God and with her family, she can face whatever comes, and she's not worried about it. Let's talk to moms as we close, because that's where the list goes. Moms, love on your children. If you're in that spot where you can, I know there's moms here, there are people, ladies here, who would love to be moms and can't be. My heart is for you, and we need to, pray for those as whatever. But for those of us who are here and who have been blessed in God's way to be moms, these are the things that you should do as you love your kids. Verse 26, find a woman who will open her mouth with wisdom and teach with kindness. The teaching of kindness is on her tongue. This is a mom who's willing to say what needs to be said and to say it in a way that's loving. Say it in a way that can be heard. Right? Truth and love. I talk about that to you all the time. Our world right now is overemphasizing love over truth or overemphasizing truth over love. And it's just a lot of noise. Nothing's really getting accomplished through that. There needs to be this balance of truth and love. And that's what a mom is able to strike, or should be able to strike as she raises her kids. My mom has given me so many truths that have helped me just in my own life and even in my pastoring of other people. An emphasis on really, picking through any situation and asking the question, what is truth here? The encouragement to say, not my circus, not my monkey, which is, kind of this code for don't involve yourself in stuff that's, not your stuff. Stay out of things that would weigh you down needlessly. The second verse there, verse 20, talks about doing what's best, even if words are absent. It says in verse 27 that she looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She's not lazy. She lives by her example. Says a lot of great things, truth and love, but lives in such a way that her life speaks even if her words don't. Just love that this mom wrote this note to her son and gave us fellas some things to aim for. Just love that this mom wrote this note to her son about a woman and what he should be looking for in one. An excellent woman is someone who does right by her man, It's someone who brings her best to her work. It's someone who's ready for whatever comes, and someone who loves on her kids. If that's what happens, what comes next is this praise, this adulation, this celebration of a woman who has chosen these things in life. That's why I'm writing here as we close. Give that woman her flowers. Anybody giving their mom flowers today? Okay, well, over here at Publix, the flower display quadrupled. Has anybody been in Publix? I don't know where they found them all, but there was a bunch of flowers in there over the weekend. So you can probably still get some if you forgot. Did you know on your phones there is a flowers emoji? Probably wouldn't surprise you. There's lots of them, actually. And so as we close, here's what I want to do as we celebrate the ladies in our lives, our moms, our wives, our sisters, our friends. Let's take the opportunity, rather than just once a year per Hallmark, right, to celebrate our moms or the women in our lives. Let's take as many opportunities as we can to just honor them and to send them their flowers. Look at what it says in the text. It says that this woman, after accomplishing these character traits, her children rise up, verse 28, and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. And this is what her husband says about her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. I got to preparing this for yesterday, last night or whatever, and I was at this point. I was like, hey, I haven't sent my mom her flowers yet. And so I emoji texted my mom some flowers. And she's like, what's these for? And I was like, those are your flowers. And she's like, really? That's all? No. Anyway, and I said, no, I'm preaching this tomorrow, Mom, or I'm preaching this tonight. And I want to encourage all of our people, all the sons and daughters, all of the husbands, everybody in here who loves their mom or their wife or the women in their life, to just be able to say, hey, thank you. To say, there's lots of women, but you far exceed them all. And here's my challenge to you this week. Set it as a reminder. Send her flowers. It can be the emoji one. If you want to go varsity, get the real ones. I don't know. But send the flowers. Send the encouragements. Men, watch where you're steering your life and be looking out for those in need. Ladies, take care of that fella if he's in your life. Work in such a way that you bring your best, your A game, as you serve. Be ready for anything. And with God's help, love on your kids. Thanks for doing it. I esteem you. Here's your flowers. Can I pray for us as we close? Hey, God in heaven, thank you for your grace to us on this Mother's Day as we go and celebrate together, as I know many in here are going to do. May it go beyond this day. May it be every day that we wake up to the opportunity to become more like you want us to be as men and women. But then to celebrate the progress in each other, to esteem the things that look like you in each other. Grant us that grace, God, and give us your peace. I pray it in Jesus' name. Everybody said, amen. That's all I got this morning. God bless you guys. Have a great Mother's Day. If you want to talk, I'll be down here.